Hi everyone. Okay, so today we'll be looking at diagrammatic reasoning test 1. So the main thing to identify in these tests is the patterns. So we look at the diagrams and look at how they're changing and then try to identify a pattern from that. Okay, so this is our first question and it says which of the boxes comes next in this question? Okay, we'll look at the cycles first and see how they're all changing. Okay, so in the first box, we can see that the cycle is on the top left. And then in the second box, the cycle moves to the top right. And then it moves back to the top left and top right and then top left, meaning that in the next box, it has to move to the top right. That means that either C or D will be our answer. So the next thing that we'll be looking at is the triangles. Okay, so we can see in the first diagram, the triangle is standing upright. And then in the second one, it turns to the right. And then it turns back up and then turns to the right, up. And then in the next diagram, it has to turn to the left. So, and then looking at our options, okay, between C and D, the one that tends to the right is option C. So our answer will be C. Okay, so this is the second question and the pattern this time. Okay, we have squares or blocks and a line. Okay, in the first diagram, we'll start looking at, the line. In the first diagram, the line goes from the top left to the top right, to the bottom right. Okay, and then it goes straight and then it goes back to being slanted from the left to the right, then goes straight and then slanted. In the next diagram, our line has to be straight. So that gives us options A, D, and E. Okay, and then after that, we'll have to look at the square. Okay, in the first box, we can see that it's at the bottom right here. Okay, and then it moves to the left, and then it goes to the bottom left, then it moves up, comes here, and then it moves right, comes here, then it moves down, comes here, meaning that in the next diagram, it has to move to the left. So it has to be here. And that gives us option E. Okay, and then in question 3, okay, we have another triangle. In the first diagram, okay, it's a right angle triangle. In the first diagram, it's shaded, okay, and it's standing upright. Okay, and then in the second diagram, it shifts to the left, or it rotates to the right rather. Okay, and then it becomes unshaded. Okay, and then in the third diagram, it rotates to the right again and faces downwards and it becomes shaded. Okay, and then in the fourth diagram, it becomes unshaded and okay, it turns to the right again, to its right, and it faces the left. Okay, and then in the fourth diagram, it turns to its right again and it faces up, and then it becomes shaded. Okay, this means in the next diagram, it has to be unshaded. That gives us options A, D, and E. Okay, and then it has to turn to the right. So the shape will be the one in E. Okay, so our answer is E. Okay, and then the next question says which of the boxes comes next in the sequence? Okay, with this one we have 4 shapes. Okay, we can see in the first diagram we have the oval at the top left, which is shaded. Okay, the second shape is the big triangle, which is unshaded inside. And then the third shape is the small triangle, which is shaded inside. And then we have a line. Okay, and then so we can look at the patterns for the circle first, or the oval. Okay, so we have the oval here, and it's not in here, and it's not in here, so it skips 2, then comes back. So it has to skip 2, meaning that in our next diagram we won't have a circle. That gives us option B and option E. Okay, and then the next thing we'll look at is the small triangle. You can see it starts at the top, then it goes down, then goes up, down, then up, and then in our next diagram it has to go down. Okay, so that leaves us with option B. Okay, and then if we look at the other options, we can see, or the other shapes, we can see that there are no changes to them. The big triangle stays the same, and also the line stays the same. Okay, so our answer is B. Okay, and then question 5. Okay, with these ones, okay, we have, okay, we'll look at the circles and the squares, because we can see the crosses remain constant in all the diagrams. Okay, so in the first option, okay, we'll start with looking at, okay, the rotation. You can see we have in the first diagram we have circles, and then we have squares, and then circles, squares, and circles, squares, meaning that in our next diagram we'll have squares. Okay, and then the other thing is that, okay, the change in pattern, we have, okay, we have them, the shapes standing upright first, and then they're slanted. Then here they have to be standing upright, meaning that our option will be D. Okay, so in this next question we have 6 shapes: 1 circle which is shaded, 3 squares that are not shaded, and 2 other squares which are not shaded. Okay, so looking at our solutions, okay, we need to find or to determine what will be in this box that has a question mark. Okay, and then looking at the options that we've been given, we can see that okay, A, C, and E all have less than 6 diagrams or shapes within them, or within the big box. So it can't be them, because we can see that in our diagrams all of them have 6 shapes inside. Okay, and then the other thing that we can look at is that, okay, all the shapes, even though they're moving around in all the different diagrams we've been given at the top, okay, the shapes inside remain the same. So there's no change in the number of circles or in the number of squares. But then we can see in option D here, the number of circles are 2. So D also cannot be the answer. So that leaves us with B as our solution. So the answer will be B. Okay, in the next question, the shapes that we have, okay, we have 3 shapes: the oval, the triangle, and the line. Okay, we can start with the line to see how it's moving. Okay, so we see that it starts in a slanted position from the left to the bottom right, and then it moves to being from the top to the bottom, and then it moves from being, okay, it moves to being from the top right to the top left, and then it changes again, rotates right, then it rotates right again here, meaning that in the next diagram it has to be a straight line. Then we can see in our options, The diagrams that have straight lines from top to bottom are A, B, and E. That's A, B, and E. Okay, and then the next thing to look at is the triangle. Okay, so with the triangle, we can see it moves up here, and then moves left, then down, then moves to the right. Meaning that in the next diagram, it has to move up and be at the top right corner. And the only option that has that in our options that we have written here, that will be E. And so this cancels out A and B. Okay, and then if we were to look at the cycles or the ovals movements as well, or changing pattern, we can see it starts from the top right, then moves to the middle, then goes down to the bottom left. Okay, and then it starts here again at the top right, moves to the middle, then it has to come to the bottom left again. And then this still gives us option E as our answer. Okay, now next question. In the first diagram, we have 5 shapes inside, which is 4 circles and a rectangle or square. Okay, and then in the second one, okay, looking at the changes in the number of circles or ovals, you can see we have 4 in the first diagram, then in the next diagram we have 3, then it stays 3, and then stays 3. And then after that we have 2 of them. And then, okay, looking at what happened here, I believe that we need to have 2 ovals in the next 2 diagrams as well. So that leaves us with options A, C, and D as our potential solutions. Okay, and then the next thing that we can look at is the square or rectangle inside. So in the first diagram, we can see that, okay, the shape is shaded. The second one is not shaded, and then shaded, not shaded, shaded, and then not shaded. Meaning that in the next diagram, it has to be not shaded. Okay, and then all our potential, okay, under our potential solutions, that leaves us with A and C as our potential answers. So we can cancel out D since it's shaded. Okay, and then the next thing to look at is the change in size of the square. Okay, so you can see it's small here, and then it becomes bigger, and then much bigger. Okay, and then becomes small, and then a bit bigger. Then meaning that it has to be the biggest square here. So that leaves us with option A as our answer. Okay, and then with the last question, okay, we can see in the first diagram we have 3 shapes inside, which is the line, and then the triangle and the square. Then if we look at the line, it does not change form, so that is fine. We don't have to follow its pattern. Okay, and then we can move on to the triangle. With the triangle, we can see that, okay, it's here and then not here in the second one. In the third one, it comes back again. In the fourth, it's not here. Then it's here in the fifth one, meaning that in the sixth diagram, it shouldn't be here. Okay, so that leaves us with options B, C, and D as our potential solutions. Okay, and then the next shape we can look at is the square. Okay, and then with the square, you can see here, okay, it's at the top left, and then it moves to the middle. Okay, and then it moves to the bottom right. Okay, and then it comes back to the middle and moves to the top left. So in the next shape, that means we need to have it in the middle. Okay, and then under our potential solutions, that cancels out option D. Okay, the last one to look at will be the unshaded square. Okay, so we can see it's not here, not here, and then it appears in the third diagram. Okay, and then it's not here and not in the fifth one, meaning that it has to be here in the sixth one. So that gives us option C as our answer.